Hey friends, it is Krista here with Blooms and Brushstrokes, and on this video we are going to be doing the tutorial of sunflowers. So I posted a short, was it yesterday? Yesterday or the day before. I posted a short of this here sunflower, and I know that people wanted me to do a sunflower because people had commented previously, and to be totally honest, I have been craving doing a sunflower. I've been thinking about it for a few weeks because it's been on my mind. We're in the dead of winter here in Saskatchewan. It has been very cold the last week, and so it's just been on my mind. I just want to do something bright and beautiful and fun. And I got home, it was Friday night I did it. And I got home Friday night from work, and I'd had like 2 long days, like came back from the holidays, and it was just like, boom, like right into these long, intense days, which is great. But I got home from work and I was like, I just need to decompress. So I did this one I just did this one. I didn't want to do a tutorial because I was like, I just need to like paint. And sometimes that happens to me. So if you see something come up and it's just a short, it's likely because I just needed to like get into it and not spend all the time trying to record it and trying to, whatever, make sure that I don't miss any steps. Consequently, I knew that people wanted to see this. And then when I posted the short, somebody was like, yes, I want to see that. I had already started the tutorial, like filming it. So it's coming. I just knew Friday I needed to do that. But so this is the one I did Friday. And then this is the one I'm doing the tutorial of in the video, you guys. So very similar, just change the angle. I didn't love that there was only 1 leaf in here, but so I added 2 into this one and then just changed the angle up and did it like that. But similar kind of style and everything like that. I just love the brightness in these. So anyways, we're gonna get cracking on the tutorial. We are going to be doing this sunflower. You can do it in any direction you want. If you like this better than this, then just change how you're doing it. Follow my techniques. That's the name of the game here, you guys. So anyways, join me as we do the tutorial of the sunflower. Okay, so I've got a little bit better setup now. I've got this like arm that goes over top my painting, so hopefully the angle is good because I know some people have commented on that as well. Anyways, so in my carnation tutorial, somebody commented like, why do you do the oval inside? Okay, so this is the carnation. So when I started it off by doing like so, and then I did the oval like so. Can you guys see that? I'll bring it up a little bit closer. So I did the oval. This is just a rough. And they said, well, why do you do the oval? And so I used the bottom line to draw the petals that are coming down. And then in the middle, you do your middle petals. I'm just roughly doing that, you guys. And then you want to fill that pretty much. And then from there, you want to do your top petals. So it just kind of gives you a general guideline to work from. Obviously, this doesn't look anything like it, but that's kind of the idea of why I do that oval. I think I've watched lots of videos on flower drawing, and I've read lots of books. I mean, I don't know everything about drawing. That's not what I do. I love to paint, but like I often will do, like if you're going to do a sunflower, do your big circle, and then you do your center circle on the inside, and then work from here out with your petals. And then if you want to do, it's like a little bit more on an angle, do an oval, and then do your like second oval, say down here. So then it's going to make it look, and then your petals will just go to the closest line. So it's going to give a different shape to the flower when you have that oval in there and you use it as your guide. So this is going to make it seem, like it's going to be the angle of the flower is going to be different when you do it like that. So that's why I do often put a circle or an oval inside of my flowers when I do them, but it's very, very rough, just to give me some guidelines. So again, I don't lose control of what I'm doing. Disclaimer again, if you want to know more information on drawing, go find some drawing videos. That's not my jam. I'm just a painter. So if you want to have better idea of exactly how to draw things, there's tons of videos out there, and they'll help you out more with that than I can, because that's not what I'm here for. But I can give you like the basics to a to doing a simple flower. So anyways, this is what I did last night. You guys can see it a little bit better. Yeah, I kind of love how it turned out. So in the picture that I took a photograph of a sunflower out in my garden, and it had the little water droplets on it. I don't know if it just rained or what, but there was just a few on there. I really liked the aesthetic of that. So I think we're gonna do instead of following the exact same, but so, like, we're gonna paint it just the same. We're gonna just draw it a little bit differently so I'm not so bored. But we're gonna start with our goodness me. We're gonna start with it down in the corner. Do we want to do that? Let's start with it up at the top, actually. So we're gonna start with it up at the top, and we're just gonna start by putting in our center. That's gonna be like, can you guys see that? Yeah. That's going to be our center, and then we're going to draw our petals coming out from there. And so we can have, you know, and just draw them. Like, don't get too crazy about thinking about how perfect they are, because I mean, I drew these, but they're nothing like exactly how I drew, you know? And we want them to be kind of organic looking still. So we don't want it to be totally perfect. Again, so I'm just putting in some petals. This one's, got a petal on top of it. Then we'll just do this one here. That little petal there. Then we can have a few pop out the back. Let's put another one over here. And let's do one coming up over here. I think that looks not good. Okay, so we've got some petals in there, and now it's like, oh, I want my petals to look a little bit more dimensional. And like the petals are kind of like, flipping over each other or flipping over onto each other and creating that petal look. So I go and draw my line that looks just like the petal is curving, or the petal is like curving onto itself. And then we can do this side too. And it just gives that look of, and so this would be like up the center. And so this would be, creating that depth in there. So we're gonna do the same thing up the center of this one. And we'll just do a little of that there. And then let's have this one curve over at the top. And again, we're going to go up the center. You see how that creates that look a little bit, you guys, of it being a three-dimensional petal? So let's do this one here. We got a little flip of the petal there. And then in here, we'll do a little bit of one. I quite like how that looks. Again, there's our center line. Our center line. This one here. Yep, we're good. This one I did the like petal curving over, and so I just gonna go up and over, and then I bring it around, and then I just attach it in there. If you guys can see how that comes around, and then that gives the look of the petal folding over. All right, so we're gonna go up the center with that one. You guys can see that. And then we can do, yep, perfect. I like it. I like it, I like it. And then let's do this and a little bit of this. Yeah, that makes for interesting petals. I think those will be really pretty. Okay, so in the original one, oh, and then in here, I left out some white spots. That just creates the look of light. Again, if we want to do the water droplets on a petal here, oh, let's do this. Let's put them on the edge of this one. We can do that. So we have our water droplets. I just do a circle, a couple little ones, and we'll do our, and where that little design is that's going to be like the light on it. Well, I'll just do like another little one here. And maybe we'll do a couple couple down there as well. I think that's enough. Maybe we'll do it off the tip here. Yeah, let's do it. Maybe let's have it come down a little bit. See how that works out. Got a little crazy there, you guys. Okay, we'll see how that looks. We'll play with that. I don't know. I don't think I like that. We'll just put a little droppy drop there. Okay, great. So that's the start of that. That looks fine. I added all the texture and detail in there after. Okay, and so like different sunflowers have different leaves and so different shapes. Like they're not all the exact same. So I like the idea of having a couple come off of this. I think the one looks a little bit weird. So let's work with one coming out this way. And they don't have smooth edges. And if you care so much to find out more about them, just Google up sunflower leaves, and it'll give you exactly what you want to look for, and what you may want to highlight on as far as the look of them, so they look like that. And then let's do another one coming off of it. Like that. Oh, I think that'll be better. Yeah. I think that'll be better than my first one. I think I like it, you guys. Okay, so something I used in my last video, that I in my short that I didn't use, I haven't used yet. I'm going to show you guys that. But first and foremost, before we do that, I'm actually just going to give it a big wash with the water and a brush. Again, I'm not that prepared. All right, so I'm prepared now. I always start these videos and because I get so excited, I'm like, woo, and then I'm not prepared. So by the wash, I mean just taking plain water, clear water, and going over your paper, and this is going to kind of stretch it out so that we don't get too much bubbling in it, and that it keeps it straight and as opposed to it all being ripply. So we're going to put that down, and then we're just going to let that soak on in, and then we're going to use this, the Art masking fluid. And so this, I'm sure I got this at Michael's, because that's just, or maybe even the art store. It's a Dollar Rounty natural rubber latex. That's exactly what that is. And so you use it, you just put it down on the spots that you want to stay white. And that is what created these white spots. And then these were actually white to start with. I did the water droplets with them, but then of course I want it to look like the colors coming through on the water droplets from underneath the petal. The petals are like orange and yellow. So they, there's a little bit of white in there. Not as much as I'd hope to keep in there because just everything got carried away, but you get the idea. That's how those were kept white. So we're going to use that again today, because it's something new for us to use. I just have an old paintbrush that I use for it, and I try to clean it off the best I can, but I just use this exact same paintbrush every single time. So it's my whoopsie daisy. It's for that. So I got to let this totally dry. Then we're going to put this on. It doesn't take long to dry. You want to give it a good shake up. It doesn't take long for this stuff to dry. And then we can get painting away, you guys, and have a lot of fun with this one today. So I'm looking forward to this. I like the shape of this one, and I like the leaves a little bit better because I think it's going to be much better than just the one, but similar style. A lot of... Okie dokie. So we're going to bust out this masking fluid. I just use it right out of the container. I'm sure some of you do not. Anyways, you can see it's just white. It is literally like rubber. And so it just protects your paper. I'm dry enough now, but not totally dry. So I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to put this down. I'm going to let it dry. And I actually have a friend's birthday I need to get to for a few hours. And then I'm going to get back and finish recording this video. So I'm going to put this down, you guys.
on my little spots. And so the spots I want to keep white, and it doesn't need to be perfect. Of course, you can already probably tell with my painting that nothing is totally symmetrical, perfect, whatever. It is pretty free flowing. So we're going to put it on these droplets to keep them white. And then we are going to let it be, you guys. Lovely. And so I'm not going to rinse this off in my water. I'm going to rinse it off with something different. I'm going to just take the extra stuff off, like the extra masking fluid off there. And then I'm just going to run it under hot water. It cleans it out the best it can. It's not perfect. As you can see, there's some stuff stuck on there, but it's good enough for what I use it for. I guess if you needed it for a lot of space, you would have, I'm not even sure how you really get this all cleaned off there. Maybe, yeah, I'm not too sure, but anyways, you guys, that's enough of that on there. So I'm going to close that back up because I definitely don't need much. And I rarely ever use this, but I was like, oh, this is a good opportunity for a teachable moment here. So why not use it? Because I do want those to stay white, and then it allows me to just kind of go crazy with the paint there. Anyhow, those don't take long to dry, but I did kind of glop it on, so it's going to take a few minutes. And then yeah, we'll get back to it all once this is all done drying and we are ready to roll, you guys. Okay, you guys, so here we are. We are all dried up and ready to go with our painting of the sunflower now. Everything is good. The masking fluid has dried. Okay, so just like anything else, we're going to start in the background first. And in the original one, I did a light green in the background. So I'm going to do something very similar. So we're just going to go in and do wet on wet with that for the background. So we're just going to go in, wow, in all the background spots. Oh, that is the leaf actually. Whoa. My bad. Okay, so we're just going in all the background area and just dropping down some water. And it doesn't need to be like right to the edge or anything. It can just kind of be like loose, the water we put down. Like we don't need it to be so perfect. And we're just going to take a nice light green. So it doesn't really matter whatever green you so choose, or you can do any color you want the background to be. So it doesn't even need to be green at all. And we're just dropping it down in no particular way. I'm just getting a little bit of background color in there, you guys, and just so that it's not stark white. So, you know, it'll look really light, but it dries with a little bit more color into it, and that's totally cool. We can add, you know, we can add just a little bit of something else in there too, just for fun. Perfect. So that's going to be that part there. And so we're going to let that totally dry. But in this moment, we can really work on the first layer in the center of the sunflower here. So we're going to start off that with even a light yellow. We can start with that to add some yellow tones in there. And we're going to, again, just like usual, we're going to start with our lightest colors and work to darkest. So we're just going to drop in some yellow on wet again. And we're just dropping some yellow in there. And we want to do it very light because we're going to layer in quite a few colors in there. We just don't want to go too bright off the get-go with that. But we also don't want it to be so non-existent that you can't see it. So we're going to get that in there just like so. Perfect. So we're going to let all that dry really, really good. You know what? Actually, we can probably start our first layers on our petals that aren't touching the where we've done the green, because we just don't want the color to run too much into the background colors. So we can start with some of these that are in the center, but then the next thing we're going to want to work on is our green leaves. That's our next background. So we can start on a few of these, but we are definitely going to want to drop some color into the leaves next. So I'm going to get my trusty, I can actually go a bit bigger. This is this number 12. Oh, it's a Zen brush, Royal Royal Langnickel, and it's a 12 round. So again, with my petals, I'm starting with the lightest color first, and that's yellow. Or it could be whatever color you so choose. So I'm just going to go in there and drop down some water, and we're doing wet on wet again, just to start with, to get that base color in there. You can leave some spots totally white. That's just going to give the effect of some brighter color or like brightness on the, or where there would be like light on it. And so I like to do that. I like to leave out some white just for that, what's the word I'm looking for? That effect. That is the word. Oh man, sometimes it's hard for me to get out words. Okay, so then we're going to go into this one here. And we're going to drop some of that same color of yellow. Oh, and there's one in the background there. We'll do that one with a little bit of a smaller brush. And this one, there's a petal coming up in the background. We can do that one up right now too. Even if the color blends a bit from this petal, it's okay because we're going to just go with that bright, like light, but bright yellow in there as well as the base color. And now in my original picture, like you can see that like this, there's oranges and there's yellows and there's whites and stuff. They don't all have to be the same. So like now that I've done those colors for the base, it's like, why don't we do a little bit of a different yellow color for some of the base of some of the other ones. So like this one here beside it. Now they can bloom a little bit into each other. They don't have to totally, so I had a color on that brush. That's okay. They don't have to be totally dry. It's all good to have some color moving into the other petals. You just don't want to do it when it's too wet, because then all of a sudden you're going to be, it's going to take away that look that I like, the look that I have. It's like we do have some of that blending of color, but we also have the dimension. Like we like to have it differentiating between the petals. So we don't want everything just like blending together. We want some difference. Okay, so let's do this background one here. And we're gonna just, again, we're working wet on wet. And we can put like a little bit brighter down. Perfect. And we've got one coming up the back side here. And we are just sticking with that yellow theme because we will work to our darker colors. But like predominantly we want like yellow to be a common color in all of these petals because it's a sunflower. And although there's like a ton of varieties of sunflowers, I've got all kinds of colors that grow up in my garden. It's universal when people see a bright yellow sunflower that they're like, that's the bright yellow sunflower. So we do want to stick with that. But you can be, I do in this one, but you can be totally different too. Like we could add in purples, we could add in, whatever. We can do any color scheme we want. But to keep this, fairly, just fairly easy for this, we're sticking with the like yellows and oranges. That's what I want to see. That was what inspired me to paint these anyways, is because I was needing to see those bright colors. And so that's what I'm sticking with. But like the complementary color of yellow is purple, and that could look really, really pretty in here somewhere, So sometimes we have to think outside of the box, which we will definitely get to that as we proceed in this journey of watercolor painting together. We'll do lots of fun things, but in this tutorial, we are sticking with the yellows and oranges and all that fun stuff just because it's bright. It makes me happy. I need a little bit of that in my life right now because we're in Saskatchewan winter, which is all good and fine. Okay, we'll drop some on this one. We'll just leave a little bit of white there. And we'll do our last one. So we've kind of got our base colors in to start with for our petals, for our center, and for our background. So once this is all dry, I want to work on the leaves next. So we're just going to let that totally dry up, and then we're going to put our first layer down in the leaves. So I like to usually work backwards, forwards, but in the name of time, we're just kind of working a little bit wonky. And the nice thing about how I do the watercolor paintings, we don't always necessarily work from the furthest back forward, because you can see it's like, it isn't like, it's, if you're going to work like that, it's because of fine detail and stuff, you know, and it's okay if we have a little bit of color kind of run here and there, because we like that less perfect look. So yeah, so we're going to let all this dry real good, and then we're going to get on and do our leaves, and then we're just going to get on and do all the fine details starting as soon as it's dry. So our background is dry enough that we can get in and really work on those leaves a bit. And so I am going to go with a bit smaller, just because I want to get into these little nooks and crannies a bit. Now these leaves are attached together, so we're going to want to, you know, work on one and then work on the other, so they're not totally blending together. But we're going to start on this one here, our very first one, and we're going to drop down water. We're going to do wet on wet to start, to get our wash on there very first. And I'm leaving a little piece out that's going to be totally white, just for that kind of illusion. Now we're going to start with a light green, but like not, you know, similar to the background, but maybe just a little bit brighter in there, a little bit more of like a yellowy green. So I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow into green just to, yep, perfect. So that's just our base color. We want to be vibrant, because that'll be our, we'll leave some of that out and not paint over it, to leave some of that brightness to give the look of a highlight, or, you know, a light, like light shining on it. So that's what we want to do there. And we just want to bring it all the way around. And it's like, you can see the background's kind of into it a little bit there, but that's okay. The one thing with my painting is like, just let the paint flow. Don't stress about the lines too much, because you know what, you're really going to take away from that like organic look and feel of a painting if you start, you know, mussing and fussing with the edges. Like, don't get carried away with that. That's the one thing I'm going to say, is just don't overdo that. Okay, so we're going to get into this one here now, and we're going to drop some of that bright green down as well. And now it's probably going to blend a little bit together here on the side, but that's okay. Again, we don't want it to be too crazy, but we are okay with it blending and blooming into each other a bit. We just don't want it to be so much so that it becomes like a muddy painting, you know? And so we just have to be mindful of that when we're working, is how wet everything is. And that is one thing about watercolor painting, is like how wet everything is, how much paint there is. Like, you just need to be mindful of that when you're doing watercolor painting. It is so easy to overwork, overdo, overpaint. Less can be more sometimes in some of these paintings. I know somebody did make a comment. They're like, every time you do the splatters, or I think it was the gold, or like whatever, they're like, we always think that it's going to be too much, and then it just always turns out perfect. And it's true. There's a fine balance between it looking like enough or too much of everything. But if you don't do enough, it just looks like a mistake then. If you have to do the perfect amount for it to look intentional when you're doing like the splatters and the ink and the black ink drawing and stuff like that. So, all right, you guys. So we've got our green leaves. We've got them started. Now we're going to go back and work on our center again. And so we're going to start to put in different dimensions of color. And so I am going to put down a little bit of water, but like just kind of more towards the edges. So we're going to leave a little bit of that yellow shining through. And you can see I've left these spots. They're going to just be white. So that's cool. But we want a little bit of like highlight. We don't want to paint it all. We want it to be, you know, like we want there to be dimension in there. So we're going to drop down a little bit of a darker kind of orangey yellow, which is kind of this mustardy looking yellow. I'm going to drop down a bit of it here. Again, we are working light to dark, so we don't want to go too heavy on dark. And the reason my paintings turn out the way that they do is because I layer and I layer and I layer and I layer some more. So I really work with different tones of and shades and all that stuff. So we throughout each painting, that's how they look the way that they look, is because they are not one-dimensional. They are layered and layered and layered. So yeah, I really like that. It's wet right now. Pardon me. It's wet right now. And I am going to actually go in right now with even a little bit darker of a color. And we're going to move into something that has a little bit more brown in it, but still mixing it with that yellowy mustard color and a little bit of the brown, just to and we're going to start dropping that down. And then we're going to do a little around here. And like we're just kind of plopping it in there, okay? And we don't want it to look totally perfect, because in the center of this, actually, that fun fact, is like a ton of little tiny flowers. A sunflower is never totally, there's so much texture in the middle of a sunflower that it's like we got to go in there and create a little bit of that with our paint. And so we're starting to do that there with that. We can even go in again and go a little bit darker in there right now. And so I'm just going to start to go a little bit more dark with that brown and so this might be, you know, we don't want to get too crazy because we don't want to get muddy. So we're going to go in with this brown right now, and then we're going to let it dry and let that, you know, look like the texture it's supposed to without it, you know, all blending together. Because if it's too wet, it will start to all blend together, and then you won't see any of that differentiation in the color. So we're just going to go, and again, don't forget, we're going to be splattering on there at one point in time at the end. And then we're also going to be going in with our black Micron pen and creating the look of the, you know, the shape of those little flowers in there with that pen. So we don't want to get too crazy all at once, but we have the opportunity to do that right now. We're waiting for some things to dry. So we got in there and we did that. And that's great. We're going to let that dry and be the way that it is right now. So we're going to work on this petal right here over on the side, because the background is dry. Even though it's touching a little bit there, that's going to be okay. And then we work from, again, light to dark. And we are going to work back and forth around these petals for what's dry and what we can work with. So just follow along, you guys. I'm not going to go and explain everything, because we'll be here for days. But we're just going to go in now and start working a little bit with a little more of the wet on dry. So we can kind of control that color a little bit more. So we're going in with a little bit darker of a yellow. Now we're going to go back in here. This is going to be shadow because it's folded over. This part here is the petal curling up. We want to leave that pretty bright, but we want to give it a little shadow from the other side. Just a little hint of it. So we don't want to color it all in. Whoa, that could have been disastrous. I'm going to add a little bit of that in there. Again, if you feel like it's too much, too dark, you can go back in and pick up some of that color. With your paintbrush, clean it off, dry it off, and then go in and pick up some of that color. I like the way that looks so far. So we could go in. Actually, we're not going to do that quite yet. We're going to go and work on another petal. So we're going to move on over to our far one here. And we're going to drop in a little bit of water. And then we're going to get that yellow color again. And just move it around. So that one we did a little bit of a wet on wet, and then we're just working the rest wet on dry. I just wanted to drop a little bit of color or water there just to see if that color from the center would bloom into that a little bit. And it did, so that looks really pretty. Yeah. Again, we've got like that little petal kind of flipping over. So we want to leave it brighter, but we want to put a little edge on it. And that's cool. Awesome. Okay, now we want to get to this one that's behind. So we're going to do this one in the background. And we're just going to put a little water down on that one right now. And we're going to go and we're going to drop a little bit more of that mustardy kind of yellow down there. Second layer's going on. Okay, let's work with this one back here. Now these ones that are behind the petals, like you can see there's this one, and this one, and this one. They can be darker because there's going to be like shadow, like in reality there's shadow cast on them. Again, this is not a super realistic look, but if we don't have that look of shadow, it's going to look just very one-dimensional, and we don't want that to happen. So we can go a bit darker in these background ones, which we will get to. It'll all come together, you guys. Okay. Perfect. All right, so then let's do this background one here. We're going to drop a little bit of that wet down, but not totally, because we're going to do a little bit of both in there. Again, you guys, like, I wish I could say that there's exact rhyme or reason to why I do everything, but the reality is that I feel out my painting as I go. I've said that in my description of my channel. I said that in my beginning video. My disclaimer is that I am self-taught. Everything I do is about how a painting feels. And so that is how I go, you guys. I wish I could say, well, this is how I'm going to do it in every single one, but there isn't. It's just like how it feels to me. It's like, oh, I want that to be a little bit softer. I want that to be a little bit more defined. And that's kind of how I operate as I do a painting. So each painting is very individual and the techniques used are very individual. So just so you know that. And I'm sure you guys will catch on as we go through and continue on with these tutorials, which I have been having, you guys, the most fun doing. Oh my gosh, this is just like, I'm loving doing these tutorials because it's inspiring me so much to just really keep breaking through my comfort zone, to keep things really interesting and keep things flowing. So I really, really, really am loving these. So if you guys are loving the tutorials so far, please do give me a thumbs up and a comment. Like, comment about what you're liking, what you'd like to see more of. Like, please do that because it'll help me when I'm, making plans for future tutorials and stuff like that. I think I'm really loving the idea of just sticking with tutorials and working through that, and then the odd time giving a tip or a trick here and there. But I'm mostly just love the painting itself. So I do want to stick with that for the most part. But yeah, if you have anything like questions, suggestions, by all means, please let me know. And I'll plug this in here right now too, that if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you're enjoying what you're watching, hit the old subscribe button and then you won't miss out on any of the future vids that are going to be coming out. My goal is to have a video a week, but we'll see how that all works out. As summertime comes, I have this huge garden, so I fear that may be a little bit hard. I'm going to try to stockpile some videos for purposes like that, where it's like I'm just too busy. But sometimes the best laid plans, you guys. So we'll see how we do. We'll see how we do. But for now, I'm really loving it. So give me a subscribe if you're liking it, so that you don't miss out on any future videos, because you don't want to miss out on all the fun we're having. So what I'm doing here is I'm still just painting in that second layer. on my petals. And I'm moving from now my background ones up into my foreground ones, I guess we'll call that. And so we're just getting in there and adding that and not totally covering up our first layer. That's the important thing too, is like we're going in layering, but we're always leaving a bit of that first layer out so you can see some of that original color and that brightness. And you can add a little bit of it in later, but it doesn't stay quite as bright. I'm just adding a bit of like this really bright yellow in here. I don't know why, I just kind of saw it. I was like, ooh, I think I want some of that one. And so I go in here and then I just like wet my brush and I drag around the paint that I've already dropped in there. To move it around and keep it soft. And we're going to go in with a little bit of that same yellow onto this one. And we're really working up the center of these because that's where a lot of the depth is going to be, because that's what's dropping down in the petal. Like the petals are shaped like they aren't totally flat, right? So to create that, movement in them, we want the middles to be quite intense with color, and then on the edges, the brighter parts that are flipped over, those will be brighter and they can stay lighter in color. And white if you want to keep them all totally white. I'm not going to keep them totally white, but I am going to keep some parts of them white. So I'm just working on these petals here and leaving a little bit white. This is the part that's flipping over, a little bit white there, and a little bit there. Perfect. I'm really loving how this is coming together. We'll go a little bit brighter and deeper and more intense down the center of this one. And then we're going to just move that color along. Perfect. All right, we're going to let that totally dry, and then we're going to get back in and work on our second layer into the leaves and then continue on, you guys. So we're just going to give that a minute, and I will be back with you in just a second once that gets dry. Okay, you guys, so we have let that dry up really good, and we're going to go in with our next layer into the leaves here. So we're layering in, and we're going to go a little bit darker to give more dimension, but still mixing in a bit of that original kind of limey green. But yeah, we're going to start to go a bit darker in there. And we're going to start on over here again, and we're just going to bring in some of that color. So I'm doing a little bit of wet on dry here, just because we're going to want to add, we're just adding like a bit more dimension and just a little bit more intensity in the color. But again, what I like to do is I like to get that color down and then move it around from there when I'm doing wet on dry. And we can just blend it in like that. So we're on our second layer here, you guys. It's looking really good so far. I'm really happy with this all. So right now, what we're doing in this entire painting is just layering and layering and layering. And so I just keep on layering until I feel satisfied with what I have going on, So that's kind of how I do all my paintings, is that I'm just all about the layering, layering, layering. I'm adding different colors in there, different depths. So I'm going in some of these points here on this leaf where I know that it would be intense shadow, and I'm dropping in some of that dark green in there, a darker green, where I've mixed a little bit of black into it to get that shadow going on. So yeah, so that we can get that in there right now too and make that happen. So yeah, that's my main order of business at this point in the painting. So once I've dropped down my very first layers, then I just keep on going, like I said, until I'm totally satisfied with the amount of layers, colors, dimension, detail, depth, all that jazz. So yours could be a bit different than mine. Like your amount, you may like a lot more. You may like less. Like that's the thing. It's such an individual thing, and I just can't stress that enough. That like the one thing that's gonna make you, like not I shouldn't say stand out, but it's like the one thing that you know you have to develop your own kind of style, what works for you. And although I know that a lot of you guys are really, you know, inspired by my style of painting, and I love that. You don't have to just do exactly what I'm doing, and you don't have to use the same colors. So what I'm doing is just a technique, the techniques I'm using, and so then you can just get in there and like do what you want to do to make that painting look like yours, you know, and kind of have your signature on it. So I'm just kind of working over that leaf because I'm gonna add a little bit more color into it right now, and then I'm not probably gonna add a whole lot more um depth in there. I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow just for fun. Other than when I get into the detailing with the pen and stuff. So like, you know, I do go in there and I add quite a bit of layers of colors, and you know, and then in my one of my, you know, layers, I like to go in and then just like work it with the water and the watercolor that's already there. So while I'm working it while it's still wet. Um, you know, I might go and add a little bit more detail once it totally dries, but like I'm not gonna add a ton more just because we add so much detail when it comes to adding in our metallic and our black Micron ink. So, you know, that's something you also have to remember is like you're going to be doing detail with that as well. So I've got that leaf pretty much done. I think I'm actually going to drop a little bit more dark in here. And maybe a little bit over in here. It's pretty wet, so I might, you know, I might end up with like a little bit of a water splotch here, which I don't really want. Uh-oh, the cat he's woke up from a nap. He's gonna get into it, I bet. So, okay, cool. I like that. No, buddy. Yeah, I like how that leaf looks. I love all the colors in there. So you can drop in whatever colors you want, but I like those colors. I'm happy about that. So we're gonna work on the next leaf as soon as this is totally dry. So we're gonna go back to the center here and we are gonna drop in some um some other colors. And I'm actually gonna go in with a bit of a brighter orange, just a little bit of it. And I'm gonna drop in a little bit of that. Kind of all over. Just mess it up. Just put a little bit of bright orange in there. Okay, great. That looks good. And then we're going to start working with a little bit more brown in there. So we're going to go and find a little bit more of a darker browny green brown. A bit greeny. I don't like that color actually. It's kind of interesting. Kind of got a little bit of green in it. So we're going to pop that in there too. And you can see I'm just kind of dabbing it down. I think if I had a fan brush, like one of those fan looking brushes, that might be a cool brush. I did have one. I can't find it. So I might have to get one. I think that would give it some interesting texture in here. So if you have one, do use that. It might give you some cool texture, but I'm just using my number 6 round and that's perfect. It's adding enough of that in there for what I want. Ain't no bad. So I'm going to take a brown and I'm going to add some black to it to give it a little bit more depth. And I'm going to kind of work that around these edges here. And we're just splotching that down all around. like so. Getting a little bit more brown and adding a little bit more black into that. So it's just adding that dimension that I'm looking for by dropping in a bunch of different colors in there. And then we add the fine detail after. I'm like, okay, I like that. I think it's looking pretty good there. So, okay, I'm gonna do a couple of these petals with you guys, and then I'm actually going to do a time lapse of myself painting so we can speed up this video a bit because I could be here for many, many hours painting this. And well, I won't be here many, many hours, but it'll take a long time, and I don't want this tutorial to be over an hour long. So I'm going to just do a couple of these so you have a good idea of what we're going to get up to, and then I'm going to speed her up. So you guys have a good idea of what I've done here with the leaf, the one leaf, and now to the center. Now we're going to work on a couple of these petals. And so I'm going to work on, well, we'll work on this background one here. So this one's, that's a little bit wet. Let's work on this background one here. So I'm going to drop a little bit of color into there. I'm going to go a bit brighter with the yellow. And I'm going to work with that color that's in there now. So I've got that yellow in there, and I want to add some dimension. So I'm actually going to go in with a bit of a brighter orange, and I'm just going to drop a little bit of that down where the most shadow would be. And that's going to be kind of where the other leaf is over top. And the other leaf would, this leaf would be casting a shadow on the one underneath. So we're going to add a little bit of that in there. Let's leave that. Okay, perfect. And so yeah, I like how that's looking. It's gonna need a little bit, like it's gonna need a few layers to give the exact look that I'm going for. So we'll leave that one there for now, and then we're gonna, this nice orange one here, we're gonna get in there with a little bit more of that deeper orange. Drop some color, and then we're gonna move it around with our wet brush. Clean it a bit, lift it up a bit. And we're going to drop a little bit more of that brightness in there, which I think is pretty. I'm going to put a little bit of that down in this one too, while it's still a little bit wet. So you'll see, you'll be like, okay, I'm working this and working that, and that's kind of like how I roll. I'm just like all over my painting, here, there, and everywhere. Just I know what's wet, what's not, what I want to drop down, and so I just kind of get going at that. Like so, that's still a little bit wet. So okay, I'll work on this one here. I like the idea of adding a little bit of that bright yellow into that one. It's kind of a weird time to put that yellow down on here just because it's a brighter yellow than what I have, but it'll still work out really nice having that color behind it. And so the idea is that like the brightness is hitting the tips of these petals where that white is. Like, you know, so there's like a light that's hitting it, the sun, whatever, but where that really white spot is, that's kind of like showing that there's like the light is hitting it at that spot. So just, I mean, it's hard for me to describe because in my head I'm like, that's what I'm doing, but I'm not an art teacher by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm going in with this one here, and I'm dropping some of that orange in there. And I'm going to bring it up right there. So you can see we're creating dimension as we add our layers into that. And I want to soften that line up a bit. So that's what I do with water up where that orange was up the middle. So we're going to go in and create that. Oh, buddy. Nope. Here we go. We got our visitor. Little text man. Stay there. Okay. So I can see this one here where it's going to make this kind of wonky line. And that's the thing about these paints is that, and then the difference in like how wet part of this petal is. I just don't want like in here too. It's like I want to soften that a little bit. So I'm just going to go and add a little water to soften. Like you could just see it kind of like creating a line. So I just soften it by going in with a little bit of clean brush and water. And let's see. So we're just going to go in with a little bit more bright orange. Let's drop a little bit of that in there. So yeah, just work with different colors and tones of your color. And all that good stuff. And just create your petals like that. Working lightest to darkest. So just keep that in mind as you're working on these. You know, and you can see, okay, so where it gets darker, you can see it's like this is bright here, but it's getting darker as it goes down there where it's a little bit more condensed. So we just want to keep on working on that, you guys. So I hope that's a good, I'm going to speed up this video and do a little bit of a time lapse and I'll talk to you guys all the way through that. But in order for me to get this done in a fairly reasonable amount of time, I have to speed it up a bit. So that's going to do that. I'm going to just keep on working on these petals and adding layers and layers and layers into them. I'm going to do this other leaf once this one's totally dry, and then we will do our finishing touches and I'll slow down the video for that. So you guys come along for the ride. We are going to get crazy and do all the fine details and add in all the beautiful colors.
You guys, I wasn't even going to post this part because I thought I tapped on my camera to focus in on the painting and clearly that did not happen. So it's a bit blurry, but I wanted you guys just to see the process of me putting that paint down. So I apologize. Again, that is a rookie move on my part, but you can see I'm putting down all that color just in lots and lots of different layers to get the effect that I like in my painting. So that's what I'm doing here, you guys. My apologies.
I can't tell you exactly how each painting is done because each painting is done in its own little individual way. And that's what makes painting so unique and art so amazing, that there's no two pieces that are exactly alike. Unless you get a print, but then it's not even exactly alike because it's a print. Okay, so now I'm branching out with that orange a little bit. Lovely, I think that's great. And I actually think I want to do a little bit of that dark brown in here. I'm going to get my dark brown loaded up on my paintbrush. So lots of water, lots of color. Oh yeah, I like that. I like that. That's cool. I love. Okay, and then not lastly, because we're going to do a little bit of green, but we're going to do yellow, and I'm going to go in with a bright, bright, bright yellow. My brightest yellow that I have, I want to load up my brush with lots of water, lots of paint, and then I'm just working those colors out from the middle. So a little bit less as we branch or come further out in the painting. So you can see it's a very condensed, lots of splatters, and then it gets a little bit less as we come out. And then our last, we're going to do some green. And I'm going to go in with that kind of bright, bright green that I started with. Well, again, load up your brush. Lots of water, lots of paint. I'm liking this one, this paintbrush better than the one I used last night. But live and learn, right? Like, okay, that's going to do it for those splatters. So we're going to let those totally dry up. And then we are going to work these water splotches. Oh, this is going to be interesting now because I don't I think I'm going to take one of these because that kind of looks wonky there, my little blob. So I'm going to try to get a similar color. And we're just going to try to We're just going to kind of try to mask that one up a bit because it is a bit of an imperfection, but I'm not too concerned about it. Like, I don't care that much. Like, it's, you know, there's water droplets all over. So we're just going to load up a brush with similar kind of color, kind of rusty. And we're just going to that's good enough. Perfect. And so I kind of just did that like rusty color all the way through the middle, and that's perfectly fine. I love the way that that looks. Yeah, so we're gonna let that dry, let those splotches dry everywhere really, really good, and then we are gonna rub off this masking fluid, and we're gonna work those. And then the next step after that is going in with our metallic ink, which I better get that ready. And I'm running out of the gold, so I gotta get some more. So we're going to drop down the metallic ink, and then we're going to go in and finish everything off with the Micron archival ink at the end. So again, we are using the script pen number 1 to put this on our gold ink. So it's the finest brush I have. It's this nice little one here. I think I just got it at Michael's. So I'm still trying to get my butt over to the Black Dog Art Studio or art supply store, but it's just a little inconvenient. So I don't love that. Anyways, we're going to start by putting in detail into our petals with this. And so where there would be highlight is kind of what we're going to do. But just kind of wherever you think, you guys. Like, again, there's no right or wrong. Art is amazing for that. You just go with the flow of what you're doing and what you want to see. So, you know, like, I just kind of go wherever. I don't like to be, you know, kept in a box. Like, I just want to have fun and get that metallic. Again, it's funny because it's like, is the metallic tacky? I can't tell, you guys. What do you think about the metallic? Like, is it, I think it makes the paint, like, I think it makes my paintings. Like, I honestly do. But do you guys think it's kind of tacky? I don't know. Like, I love it. It's kind of a funny thing, but I do. And I've tried to do some without, and I'm like, you know, I just don't love them as much. So I'm just going to keep sticking to using my metallic ink because, like, why not? Why not? It's all good. So yeah, so I'm just going around finding my spots that I want to add that metallic to. Just kind of going up and around and then kind of like up the center. Lovely. It really just gives the painting that like extra pop and pizzazz that I really, really, really like. And then when I go in with that black pen, the Micron pen, it's like even better. It just adds that pop, that like it adds that dimension and that detail that I love. Like, I every time I do a painting, I'm just like, oh, like, I don't know, some people really like it, some people don't love the ink, but I do. I just like really can't help it. Like, I just like it a lot. Okay, I think for those it's probably be enough for the petals because I will add even more detail. Ooh, this one here. Once I get the with the Micron archival ink pen. Okay, and so then we're gonna go in and do the detail of this. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go in and we're going to take off this masking fluid. So all you got to do to take that masking fluid off is just rub it and it'll just peel right off. It's just like rubber, seriously. And you just need to rub it. You might need to be a little bit careful. It might rip your paper. So you just want to do it like gently. This stuff is not ripping my paper, so that's good. And then I'm just going to take it off here on my little water droplets that I want to have. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start with a very light yellow, and I want to keep a lot of that white. So I'm going to just start with my brightest yellow. And the idea is that it's not going to match what is underneath. Like it's not going to match your petal because it's like highlighting it. It's a water droplet. So we're going to start here with this one, and we're going with our brightest yellow, and we're dropping that down, but leaving white on it. So if you guys can see, there's like white on the tip. So kind of where I've left these little, you know what? I don't like that one where that is. I'm just going to erase that a little bit. Anyways, we're just going to leave a little bit of white on each one. And so we're just kind of going in a like half circle around, and we're just creating that roundness and leaving that white there. So we're just going around with that yellow, and we're using a bright one. And you can see in this one that the orange kind of started to bleed in there. That's fine because we're going to use a little bit darker color. And we're just doing this for all the little water droplets that we have. And we're going to use the same bright yellow because we want it to be bright. We're giving the look of these being water droplets, and they're just like they're kind of magnifying the color underneath of it. And we will add more detail too once we get that black Micron pen going. Okay, so we start off with that. We're going to want to let those dry. And then we're going to take a little bit of a darker color, I think we'll add a little bit of orange into that, a little bit of a darker orange. Because we're going to create some shadow now. Yeah, I think that's good enough. So we'll start with our very first one. And we're going to create shadow. So we're just going to go around on the side that's opposite where we left the white. And we're going to create a little shadow by going around the outer edge. That's still a little bit wet, so I might have been a little premature on that one. But we can go in and pick up some of that color. And we're going to get that off our brush. Pick it up and take it off our brush. Pick it up. Okay, we better let those dry, otherwise we'll be fixing up every single one. But you can already see, like there's the white there, and then we've got yellow, and then we've got that orange on the outside. So that's already going to make a beautiful water droplet once we get in there and use the black pen. So, okay, we're going to do this one. We're going to go around the opposite side, so we don't want to go all the way around. But we're going to the opposite side where the white is that we left to create that shadow on the opposite side of where the brightness is. So we don't want to go all the way around, or if we do, we just want this where the closest to the bright spot is very, very thin line. And on the other side, we just want to make sure that that's where the shadow is. So let's do that. And then we're going to do this one. Oh, there's a little bit of water on that one still. Okay. I can do a tutorial too a little bit better about doing these water droplets. Just a little bit more in depth so we know, so you guys can really have a good look at what I'm up to. We're not going to get too crazy because that we do so much detailing with that Micron pen that it's going to create all the goodness that we need. But you get the idea that there's like yellow in there. I might even be able to, oh yeah, that one's not good yet. Good enough. So you guys can see, it's like, yep, those look like little water droplets. I mean, they're not exactly perfect, but they go with the flow of this painting. I'm just gonna add a little bit more yellow in there. Good enough, you guys. Okay. These ones I'm not even gonna add any color into because we're gonna go around all this with our black ink. Okay, so I've been using this number 1. I usually use the 3, but I actually really like this number 1 and I had a package of them, so I'm just gonna use them up. So very first place I'm gonna start. Now we don't want to bump our hands into where we just painted, but last night I started up in the top here or in the side, and I just drew little squares all over the place. Squares, just randomly, to create the look of texture. And why squares? Well, when I see a sunflower and I look in the middle, that's almost kind of what it looks like to me, is like these little tiny squares, but they're actually full of little tiny flowers in there, which is unbelievable. If you can imagine, if you look really closely, that is what they are. So I'm just going to go around those white spots, and they're just kind of wonky squares I'm putting in there. So if you guys can see that, where it's like just, yeah. And so I'm going through this whole entire space and I'm putting in squares, and they don't need to like, pardon me, they don't need to totally fit together. Leave space in between. It's just causing that, or creating that look of texture, which is what we want. You can do smaller, you can do bigger, you can do, like, you don't want to go too big though, because the center of a sunflower is very, very detailed. And I'm just keeping my hand up and loosely going around and creating these squares and kind of all over. And you want them kind of touching each other, but they don't need to fit together like a perfect puzzle piece. This part took probably the longest yesterday, was getting all these like squares in here and making it kind of look cool. But yeah, you can see that there. I'm just doing them totally randomly. You can do them like around some of the splotches, just do them however you feel fit. If you don't love that, you want to go around and do circles, well, by all means, go do circles, go do ovals, go do a triangle, go do a diamond, like whatever shape you think. That was just, to me, when I was doing this last night, I was like, oh, I'm going to go in and put these like kind of wonky squares in there. And that's just going to create all that look of that texture that you would see, and a little bit of chaos inside the center. But it's like, they're so perfect in the center of a sunflower, but it's like, it's just, there's so much in there. So we've got that pretty much all done up, and you can go in and, oh, there's like some spots that I'd like to put one in, or just a little one. Go in there and tweak it however you like. And then we're going to go in and do our fine last pass with the, okay. So I just do my squiggly lines. And I'm doing 2 passes over. It's a larger painting, and I like the look of that. Good times. Yeah, so just go around with your Micron pen. Double it up all over. You don't want to just do a single line, or I guess you can. Again, I just like, because it's a bigger picture, I like to double up my black. Just to add like just a little bit more intensity in there. So yeah, you guys, that's pretty much it for this entire tutorial. Oh no. I'm like, there is still, we gotta do our splashes of metallic ink at the very end. We cannot forget that part. So we have a little bit more to go. But it's all just coming along real good. Okay, so we're at our water droplets here. Kind of went through the one, but that's all good. Like, I'm not too stressed about that, but we're just gonna go around them and not perfectly circular, because if we do that, it's just gonna look too perfect in an imperfect picture, you know? But I'm putting a little square in there kind of around where that white spot is to create the look of that light being there. So, okay, here's a good one here. Okay, and we're just going to go in there and create that little square. That's going to create that look of light there. And that's that. So you guys, that's how I'm doing that. Oh, here's one last one. Go around it a couple times, create that light. And it's just jagged. Like, I think that's what makes these paintings a little bit unique, is just kind of the free flowiness of them. That, oh, I gotta put, that there's just like no real perfect line, but in that, doing that, it just looks so good. I think. And obviously, if you're watching my videos, you also think that. Like, you enjoy the style, so welcome. And thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to say that all right now. If you guys, like I said earlier, if you are enjoying this tutorial or you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. That helps my videos get pushed out to a greater audience, and then more people get to see the fun and excitement of what all goes on in the tutorials. So do give it a like if you like it. And if you haven't subscribed but you've loved, or you're curious about what more we might possibly have on this channel, then you should hit subscribe, because you don't want to miss out on what more could come. So definitely hit subscribe, hit the like button, all that good stuff if you've enjoyed your time here with me today. And you will be sure to see the next tutorials that'll come out. And then you can join along in all the fun. If you have any concerns about what I'm up to, you have questions, drop them in the comment section for sure. I'd love to help you out and just help you be a little bit more successful in what you're doing. And if you have any suggestions, people have already been suggesting. Sunflower was suggested, and that was on my list of things I really wanted to do anyways. If you have suggestions of what you want me to do a tutorial of, or if you need help, and if you have a question, I'm sure that other people have questions. So if you need a hand, you have questions, ask, because then I can do some tutorials about those questions. And because I'm sure if you have, like I said, if you have that question, I'm sure other people do too. So ask the questions. There is no ridiculous questions here at all. As I've mentioned in previous videos in my introductory, this is like a safe space for all of us. And that's what I want to create. Constructive criticism is totally fine. Bullying is not. Insulting anybody else or insulting anybody's creative style or art form, not cool. But yeah, pass on all of the questions that you may possibly have, and then I will do my best to answer them, you guys. Okay, so I've got my black ink all in there. It's looking so good. I'm loving it. I think I like this one better than the one yesterday. I do love them both. But I'm going to finish off by adding in my gold. And so I'm going to add the gold in, the gold splatter in. I want to go heavy in here and light on as it comes out, just kind of as I've done everything else. And you guys will notice I haven't blown any of my paint around. I just think it's such a busy picture as it is that I don't need to blow any of the paint around. It'll just be too messy. So I'm loading up my paintbrush, like loading it up. And I'm just going to go hammer down in the center there. Lots. Whoopsie, I bumped my... And messy, and messy. And we're doing lots in the center, and then we're like getting less as we come out towards the leaves. Gentler, gentler. But lots heavy in the middle. I like that like mess. And then it just like lightens up as it comes out. All right, you guys, that is that. We're all done up. It's going to dry, and then I'll sign it. And then that's going to wrap up that video, you guys. Okay, so that, like I said, is going to wrap up my video, you guys. That is probably going to take a long time. This whole video is probably going to be a while. So I'm going to sign it quickly. And then take off the tape, but it's still wet. So just be very careful if you're going to be excited like me. I'm going to take that tape off, but I've said all the good stuff. So like the video, be sure to hit like if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any comments, if you need anything at all, drop it down. You guys have been an amazing crew of people already so far. This channel is so new, and I've had like the most unreal experience so far with this channel. It has been so fun. So many comments, so many beautiful people loving art and wanting to create art. I just love it all. So yes, engage. Let's create this really fabulous community that's welcoming and that we're just going to have a lot of fun just creating and letting ourselves be free and just explore watercolor paint together and have a lot of fun. I'm so impressed with all of you guys already. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, for supporting this channel. I appreciate it immensely. And yeah, thanks you guys for watching, and we'll check you guys next time.